Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host and joined by my colleague, Vern Schellinger. I think Alki will not be joining us today, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And we are here to answer your job search questions. We have some new faces and some familiar faces. And so for the new faces, you are welcome to ask any question that is on your heart and mind for your job search. Vern and I will do our best to answer it. My background is I'm a career coach and a recruiter, and Vern is a former HR executive and a career coach. And so we have a variety of perspectives to share. And yeah, look forward to hearing your questions. And because, just to kind of make time for everybody, we would ask that when you ask your questions, sort of keep it sort of focused, right, to the question that would actually be good for everybody to hear, so we can have enough time for folks. So with that, who has a question to kick us off with? What is a tactful, Hillary? What is a tactful way of saying, why is this role vacant? Or is it better to avoid that question altogether so as not to put them on the spot? That's a great, that's a really great question. So you're always welcome to ask that question, all right? It's almost it's a question that employers kind of expect. Yes, it does put them on the spot a little bit because if the person left for less than favorable reasons, they have to be very cagey around that. I guess the question that I would ask is, what would be your reason for asking it, right? People have different reasons for wanting to know that. And so I think if it's a newly created role, that's an easy way that's a really good reason. If it's, you know, wanting to kind of find out what was going on with the last person, where it can be a little dicey. So Hillary, I would just invite you to think about, what kind of response are you looking for, right, from that? In fact, do you feel comfortable sharing kind of your thinking around your reason for the question? Because again, it's a very normal question, but everybody's got a different, lens around it.
Just like if there's roles that there seem to churn out a lot of people and like why that might be the reason, like so that you can be successful in that role.
Mhm. Yeah. So maybe that's a good way to reframe it, right? Is not rather why did somebody leave, but what is the best way to be successful? That's the flip side. That's the positive side, right? I don't know if, presuming that the roles is not newly created, you can say, what have the most successful employees look like in this role? Like what kind of skills have they demonstrated? What kind of behavioral attributes? Who really tends to succeed in the role? What makes them successful? Those kinds of great questions are great because then that's very positive and forward thinking, and then they can just focus on the future, or maybe they'll pull out a few qualities of the best people without having to deal with the other. And so if they talk about the positive, you can assume what the other side is. Just keep it positive. That's what I'd say, Vern.
Um, yeah, and when you're asking that question, you're asking it to somebody within the organization, either the recruiter or anyone who's involved in the interviewing process. I really don't have a problem when I was in HR if somebody asked me that question, why is the role vacant? I would just tell them that, person left for a better opportunity. I would tell them that, the last person, just didn't succeed in the role. As simple as that. But but then it's really up to you. You know,
Right.
it's good for you to know that. And as you said, you don't want to get into a situation where there's a lot of churn. In other words, no matter who's in the position, they're never succeeding. It's a whole different problem within the
Right.
organization.
Yeah.
And so you'd want to avoid, if they make you an offer, but you know that, everybody just lasts and they turn over, then you probably reject the offer. But and Shira, Shira gave you, I'm saying I'd be willing to answer that question. Some other HR executive may not. So,
Yeah.
as you say, they might feel like you put them on the spot. So,
But if your real reason for wanting to know is to know how you can be successful, you can avoid the question altogether and just simply ask, what would make me successful?
yes, so,
Right.
which is a question you should ask
Yes.
at some
Anyway.
point in the interview.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's to me, it's one of the most important questions anybody can ask in an interview. What does success look like in this position? If I come in and 6 months from now, you said I'm the best XYZ person who's ever been in this position, what would cause you to say that? What would I have accomplished? What will I have done in that first 6 to 12 months
That's
to
right.
be so successful in this position? Now that may throw them off too because
But they don't necessarily know.
they don't necessarily have a real concrete answer.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Um, so
Yeah.
on the other hand, they might have a very concrete answer. They know exactly what's needed. So every interview is a different interview. It doesn't matter who it's with or where it is or what company it is.
And look, most employers, let's just face it, most employers are winging it. They're winging the whole process. Really. Even large companies who have a very standardized way, we're just sort of figuring our way out, our way around this, because business goals change and people change and culture evolves and somebody leaves the role and they had this skill set, but now do we need when we're backfilling it, do we need that skill set? Do we need a new skill set? I mean, it's this whole complicated, mishmash. And so the more questions you can ask about expectations and success metrics and hey, what are the projects that I'm going to be involved with when I first start? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest opportunities? What do you really need me to accomplish in the next few months or over the next year? I mean, anything you can do to try to get them to talk about the role will help them too, by the way, to really understand. I mean, I had it happen recently. I'm doing a search and I sent this candidate who actually was quite great. I mean, she had skills and whatever, but she got into the interview and when the candidate asked some questions of the employer about scope of the role and the employer was a little bit like she couldn't answer it. And I was like, this is my client. I was like, this is interesting. So I got back on a call with the client, like, hey, let's talk about this, right? Why weren't you able to answer these questions? I didn't say it that way, but we really talked it through. And now we're actually changing the scope of the role. We're actually going to level up the title. I mean, it's a whole thing. But the candidate was the one to uncover the fact that the employer wasn't able to really, give a thoughtful answer. So again, this is an evolution. People kind of have to they get into it and they keep trying to figure out exactly what exactly do we need. And the other thing too is depending on your skill set, you might help them evolve the role. Because if you have certain superpowers that they didn't even know that they could get, they might go, whoa, for you? Oh, wait, we could reframe this. We could have you go into this kind of project because there's no static way to do this. Job descriptions evolve and candidates are very unique and everybody's trying to do this thing, right? So you can help them help you to figure out what's the best fit.
And then the other variable in this whole thing is when you're interviewing wherever with whomever, some people aren't very good at interviewing.
Right.
So,
That's right.
you get into an interview and you'll sense it, you'll feel it, you'll just go, oh God, this just isn't, and
Mhm.
then you just have to do your best to work your way through the interview.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. That's
and
right.
it can happen at the most senior levels in the organization that
Mhm.
they still don't know how to interview.
And
So,
by the way, one of the telltale signs actually that you have somebody who doesn't know what they're how to interview is that the employer will actually talk and talk and talk about the job, but not ask you a lot of questions. It's
yeah,
funny. You think, oh, that's great, but actually a good interviewer will ask you really good questions. The ones who
yeah.
don't know what they're doing will just sort of talk about the role and they don't know what to ask. So that means you actually have to ask them good questions and also be prepared to share about yourself if they don't know how to ask the proper questions. So again, it's a very fluid kind of a thing. I would say the larger the organization, the more likely they have a standardized process. They have a formal HR department and formal recruiting process and maybe standardized questions. The smaller the organization, likely the more they're winging it a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, Hillary, we gave you more than your question was asking, but I figured that was a nice opener to talk about some other things. Hope that was helpful. All right, other questions? Pete.
So I filled out quite a few applications, and I guess it's more of a curiosity thing. Do you know why they always seem to ask, you know, how they ask your uh, gender and your, well, one of the things is always asking about like if you're Hispanic or,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole we'll just put that in the category of demographics. Okay. So first of all, anytime an employer asks you those things, it should be optional. It's supposed to be an optional question. And it is likely, Pete, I'm just guessing here that it was a government contractor that was asking you those questions. Is that right?
I think I pretty much see it on all,
Really? Okay. Well,
everywhere I
okay.
apply.
So it used to be that GovCon would tend to ask those things because there was a requirement under something called OFCCP, which is it's just a government contracting regulation that where they're asking government contractors to make sure that their hiring practices are equitable and that they're sort of checking boxes and making sure that they have a diverse slate. I would imagine that other employers are doing that now too. And it's basically that. It's ensuring that they have a diverse representation of candidates, right?
So maybe
Yes.
more of a,
Mhm.
the, maybe more for those companies that have like DEI.
Well, yes, yes. Whether they would overtly acknowledge that or not, yes. So there are
Yeah.
definitely companies who have been for years now, really been trying to make sure that there's equity and inclusion and making sure that they have diversity. And so they will sometimes ask those questions to make sure of that. But again, it's supposed to be an optional, those are supposed to be optional questions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, other questions? How is it with hiring international students? Benita, could you be a little more specific on your question? Could we get a little more clarity around it? Benita, are you able to open your mic? Or maybe in the chat, share a little
Oh
bit?
yeah. I just wanted to know how it is for the international students with the job market right now, because I am a student who would be graduating next month, and I'm looking for jobs. I've been applying, since October, and it's been a rough time for me. Like I'm not even getting interview process. So do you have any word on this?
So I don't know what your legal status is. And I don't know if you feel, and I don't want to ask you directly on a public call like this, but I would just say generically, for people who are not a US citizen or do not hold a green card in general, not just right now, in
Mm-hmm.
general, it can be more challenging because if a person is on an H1B visa or just any sort of visa,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then employers will need to basically foot the bill to
Yeah.
keep you on their payroll and to get you the right status, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
anybody, it's not just international students, anybody who is not a green card holder or a U.S. citizen is generally going to have a challenge around that. And so your ability to network and
Yeah.
find somebody who knows an employer who really feels like they're going to value your skills and may
Mm-hmm.
want to invest in um uh holding a visa. Again, I'm not
Yeah.
asking your specific situation, but I know Monica comes from the international world. So what Monica what oh okay. So Monica has a whole thing that she's sharing here. But
Okay.
anyway, I would suggest that networking is probably going to be your very best bet, but just keep in mind that employers are risk averse and it could be expensive for them to hold on to someone who's not a green card holder or a US citizen. So that's what I would.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Other questions? Anything related to resumes, networking, recruiters, salary, interviewing, anything that's top of mind right now?
I have a question. It's a little bit long and it's a little bit personal. I put it in the chat, but I could read it.
Um, so
Well, is your key question, Monica, how do you appropriately focus on my upbringing in a church defined by its commitments to inclusions, support for survivors, and strong interfaith relationships,
hmm,
while recognizing not all area Lutheran communities share these values? Um, I guess my question to you would be, um, if you were interviewing with a Lutheran um, organization, church, um, why would you want to bring that up?
Well, no, the context would be me interviewing with a Jewish organization by somebody who used to live in Seattle. And so there's a nearby town called Paulsbo where people are very insular and even tend white supremacist. And so I that is not where I come from, but I'm aware that that is an issue.
yeah, that sounds like a pretty specific situation. I would use your judgment. If you have any reservation about I'm going to say this in general, okay? So not just about your
Yeah.
specific situation. Um, if you're approaching an employer and you have any hesitation about whether um, you should bring up a topic, personal or otherwise, I would err on the side of caution, whatever that topic is. If you
Okay, yeah,
feel
because I
like,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, because I do come from Bremerton, and like if you analyze my resume or LinkedIn, you can figure it out. Bremerton is not Paulsbo, but Paulsbo is nearby. Yeah.
So yeah, I would just say if there's any hesitation, I wouldn't address it. But if you feel like it's something you want to lean into, you may want to open up that conversation. That's the best as I can offer for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can share one personal experience that maybe is similar to this. I don't know. But I was asked by by a recruiter that I knew very well. She wanted me to interview for this particular job. Um, and as I went through the interviewing process, um, and this was with a religious organization, and I just didn't feel that this was the right fit for me, given their culture and kind of I felt like I'd be out of place in that organization because of how deeply committed they were to, you know, the religious, group that they represented. And so I just withdrew myself from, I had a couple of interviews and I was going through the process, and then I just decided I just really don't want to go any further. So again, that's something that you might want to think about, Monica, as you get into it. So
These are subtleties that, you just have to
yeah,
really be thoughtful about.
yeah.
All right. Other questions. And by the way, if you guys don't have a ton of questions today, we can actually jump into some networking, which I know we do periodically. And networking, we're always talking about networking, and this is as good a place to do it as any. So if someone has another question, happy to answer it. Otherwise, we can spend a little bit more networking time today. Okay, let's jump in. So the way that, iPhone Decalion, would you like to open your mic?
Right up above he or she.
Yeah, I
Shows
apologize.
the
I
question.
can't see your name. It's just how to improve LinkedIn to make it more attractive. Well, we have a lot to say about LinkedIn. Are you available to open your phone to give us a little bit more color around your question? Because attractive means a lot of different things. We have literally could speak an hour on LinkedIn, so I want to make sure we're addressing your specific question. Okay. Oh, you can't open your. I see. You can't open your phone. Could hmm. Could you just write one more sentence around when you say attractive, what you're referring to?
Yeah.
And then we
It's
can
attractive to me makes
there's a lot of ways.
yeah, make it pretty.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Which is, that'd be
Yeah.
nice, but it's not going to be very helpful
Right.
in terms of
Okay, if I'm not sure if you're able to respond. So I'll just go ahead and make an assumption. Oh, for recruiters. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna give a little sermon here. If that's okay. So this is hopefully for everyone. So when we think about recruiters, and not just recruiters, but anyone who is looking for you, but in particular recruiters, here's what's going on. There's a search bar in LinkedIn in the upper left-hand corner. It's hidden in plain sight. Most people don't even see it. This is the search bar that recruiters use to go look for you. What they're doing is you have to walk a mile in the employer's shoes first when you're thinking about doing your own LinkedIn profile. The employer, the recruiter, has a job title in mind. That's what they start with. So they're looking for a director of marketing. They're looking for a vice president of education. They're looking for a customer service manager, whatever they're looking for, policy analyst. It could be a million things. What they're going to do is they're going to go to that search bar and they're going to put in the name of that title and hit enter. And that's going to come up with a laundry list of people. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because LinkedIn's algorithm is such that what it does is it pulls up whatever the related title is in somebody's career headline. So again, here's an example. If I happen to be a recruiter, so I do this a lot, that's why I can talk about this. So let's say I'm looking for a director of marketing. I put in director of marketing in the search bar. I hit enter. Comes up with page after page after page of people. The people who come up first page, second page, third page will usually have in their career headline, right under the picture, some version of director of marketing, some version of that. I mention that because this is one of the most important things you can get out of retooling your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that the first few words of your career headline relates as directly as possible to the title of job that you're looking for. You have to think about it from the recruiter's perspective. Now, you don't know the job that necessarily that they're recruiting you for, but you can kind of make some assumptions. So you want to make sure that the first few words speak to the title, not to your other qualities. Some people will do that. They'll sell in their career headline, they'll say something like, oh, I'm an energetic such and such. I solve these kinds of problems, or some people will actually say seeking opportunities. Don't put seeking opportunities. That's a waste of your real estate. You want to focus in on the headline. So you could start with director of marketing or marketing leader, that kind of thing. But I would say more the director level. Then you can say some other things about how you do what you do or kind of what your mission is. But you've got to make sure that the first few words are very specific. And I would go even one more level down. If you're in the kind of profession that has a nuance, for example, marketing. Well, there's different kinds of marketing. There's B2B marketing, B2C marketing, there's digital marketing, those kinds of things. You can get a little bit more specific, but you've got to make sure that those first few words are going to be as related as possible to what an employer is probably going to put in the search bar to find you. So that's the first thing, is your career headline. The second thing, and actually I'm not saying it necessarily in order of importance, but it's what's top of mind. Right above your career headline is your picture. Focus on that picture. Focus on that picture. You want a picture that really speaks to both your professionalism, but also to your personality, right? I was meeting with somebody the other day, and I was meeting with her, and she's, just lovely person, big smile, right? Very engaging. Her picture didn't show that. Her picture looked kind of dour, kind of sad. It was just the angle, I guess, she took the picture at. And I'm like, this isn't really serving you. You're got a beautiful smile. You're like an engaging person. Let's try to get a picture that actually reflects how you engage with people, right? So really make sure you don't have to go spend $350 to go to a professional photographer. Of course, we have lovely smartphones these days. Try to get someone to take a picture of you that really reflects, again, your personality, your professionalism. That's your first impression. Okay. So just a tip is the picture. And by the way, speaking of the picture, there is the picture behind your picture, the masthead. Most people have one of those. Most people don't leave it blank anymore. I do actually recommend having something, but if you're going to put a picture behind your picture, I would encourage you to find a picture that is related to your profession or related to your sector. Not, for example, if you're here in the DC area, not the cherry blossoms or picture of Capitol Hill. This isn't really about where you live, it's about what you do for a living. If not everybody can do this, but if you can find something that is related to, again, your profession, your industry, that's helpful. Then jumping down to the about section to me should be a compelling narrative, not just a bio, not just 3 or 4 lines. I've got 25 years of experience doing XYZ. Really speak to who you serve, how you serve, the problems you solve, your skill sets and your superpowers. You want it to be a real creative, sort of narrative. It happens to be something that I do for a living with my coaching clients, but you don't have to do it the way I do it. You can do something that feels right for you, but do it in a way that really compels people to want to read more. So not just a laundry list of skills, not just a few little lines, something that really speaks to the value you provide in your work. And then under your experience section, the experience section, which really is your resume, here's another tip. So it's gonna obviously have, you're gonna have your company and title and dates. That's the normal thing that they ask you for. But there's more than that. I recommend having a fleshed out description section. The description, most people don't even put much in there. If anything at all, most people either leave it blank or they just put in a couple of lines. Actually, you want a recruiter to be able to screen you from your LinkedIn page. You'd be surprised how many recruiters make their decision, myself included, make their decision to interview someone based on the LinkedIn profile before they even see your resume. So you want to have some richness in there, accomplishment stories, right? Really help them to say yes. Okay. So fleshed out description section, a compelling about section, a career headline that really speaks to the kind of title that you're looking for, have a compelling picture, both the masthead as well as your own. So hopefully that's a full enough response to help get you going. Vern, I know that LinkedIn isn't, you don't play as much there, but happy to have you give your input if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with everything you say. I mean, again, it's so abundant in the world today in terms of how many, people are on that, particular platform and everything it can do. And
Yeah.
so make the best use of it for yourself and
Yeah,
the job.
really be thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, really be thoughtful. Pete?
To follow on to when you were talking about the headline, as far as like I have a number of IT manager type positions listed in mine. Do you know if it's important to actually like spell out information technology
Not,
is
well,
IT, or do you
yeah,
know if
you have
like
to
the
think about
LinkedIn
your own profession.
logic would?
Yeah. IT in your case, that's what people would do. A recruiter would put in IT manager, IT director, IT, because we know that that's the shorthand. But you just have to think about that for your own profession and for your own industry. Is it common for somebody to use shorthand, which it is in your case? Yeah. But I would be even more specific with you, Pete. I'm sorry, I don't have your LinkedIn profile up right now. And I know you're in the cybersecurity world. So you want to also be thoughtful around that, in terms of leading with like a cybersecurity expert or whatever it is that you want to lean into. So not just the title, but that extra description, because obviously IT means a lot of things, but you happen to have a cyber lens. So I would make sure that you emphasize that in the top of your LinkedIn. Yeah. Sai, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You're on mute. Oh, this is in chat. How did
How to get a job as
Oh, Sai, it's interesting. We actually just answered that question. How to get a job as an international student in the United States. We just had the question, I guess, right before you got on. So what I was sharing is that and again, I'm certainly not going to ask you about your own status, but for people who do not have a green card or not a U.S. citizen, it can be more challenging because employers have to it costs them money to hold a visa, and so networking is going to be very, very important for you to find somebody who works within a company you're looking to work in, who can champion your candidacy, so that the employer feels more attracted to you, feels like that your skills are ones that they really, really want to have. And maybe for you, they will want to invest that extra amount of money to hold your visa. So again, networking is going to be really huge, not just applying for jobs on a job board, but making sure you build relationships with people who can champion you. So that's my best advice.
Here's an example of, as Shira said earlier, we always talk about networking. Um, how many other international students do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And what has been their experience? Have
Yeah,
they found, some,
great.
something that they've used that's worked? So I would talk, if you have, and I'm guessing you do, have other international students in your, your ecosystem, people
Yeah.
that some of them you may know really well, some of them may just be a casual friend, but to just reach out to them and see what their experience has been is finding a job. And I know as an international student, it can be very difficult. Um,
Vern, you're making such an excellent point, and to that point, not only what asking them what's worked for them, but asking them if they can refer you to the companies that they've landed in, right? Because employers love to get what we call employee referrals. So if you have a friend who is working in a company, it might be that there's an opening there and they can refer you in because if they are a trusted employee, the human resources department again trusts them and says, "Oh, if they refer somebody, that's a trusted referral." So, Fern, that's a fabulous point. Yeah, network with
yeah,
international students who've
yeah,
already landed.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Great question.
Yeah, I actually had a recent experience with an international student who graduated with a master's program from Georgetown. It was a STEM program, and under the conditions of this program, anyone who graduated in this STEM program was granted a 2-year window in which to find a job. And she was searching for a job and searching for a job, searching for a job, and she finally did land a job. And so now she's hoping over the next 2 years she can get a green card. She can get, she can move through the process. Um, but I know how hard it was for her. So,
Yeah. Network.
work. Yep.
Did the frequent posts on LinkedIn about the projects help in networking? Um, and also, DeCallian, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. She said, in addition to building a strong network, having a solid LinkedIn profile, it's essential to have a work permit. This prevents you from becoming a burden on your employer, as work visas are often expensive and involve a lot of bureaucracy. Yeah, exactly. If you have a work permit, yeah, whatever you can do to to help the employer lessen their investment is going to be helpful. Do the frequent posts on LinkedIn about projects help in networking? Sure. Anything you can do um, to increase your visibility is helpful. Now, if you talk about projects, I mean, I don't know exactly what you're referring to in terms of how you would be describing it, but typically LinkedIn and the feed, you would want to share projects that are going to be helpful for your community. So if you want to talk about a project that you've done because you feel like your community could benefit from your thought leadership, maybe you're sharing an idea, you're sharing a best practice, you're sharing something really cool that you did because somebody else could learn from it. Great. I found that's for anybody here, by the way. I mean, that's just always great to give to the community. And then, yes, you will be increasing your visibility, and therefore somebody might go, oh. In fact, it reminds me, years ago, I was coaching an early career professional, and she was in the sort of web design world and user experience and all this. Well, she decided that she had a really strong passion around web accessibility. In other words, making the web accessible for people with disabilities. And so I encouraged her to write a blog post about her philosophy and her approach around this. And she did. And she posted it. And apparently somebody took notice of it and she eventually got hired because she put out her thought leadership on LinkedIn and somebody noticed it. So yeah, absolutely use LinkedIn for that for sure. Again, because you're adding value. And as you add value to other people, then hopefully they're going to notice what you're doing. Hope that helps. All right, other questions? Otherwise, happy to start some networking. Good. Glad it was helpful. All right, so let's go ahead and do some networking. And the way that we like to do this here is we have a little formula, and I'm going to share it with you. So I have this concept called lane versus community. If you haven't heard this before, you want to write it down. Lane is your profession. Community is the industry or sector or mission that you serve. Lane, community. And the reason why we talk about it this way is because that's actually how employers think. The lane for them is the job title. It's what you're going to do. The community is their industry, their sector, and they usually like for people to be part of that industry or sector if possible. So when networking, it's really helpful for other people to know what lane or community you're in so that they can help you kind of find the right role. So what you want to do is when we go around the room, and I'll let you know in advance before it's your turn, you want to state what is your lane. And when I say your lane, I mean you might want to say, like Pete, right? I'm a IT cybersecurity professional, or Monica might say I'm a marketing professional, right? Or Mark might say I'm an attorney. Okay, that's the lane. So what you do. The community, Monica might say, okay, I know she's come from international development. She's been in that sort of community. Mark has come from the banking sector, right? That kind of thing. So your lane is what you do. Community is who you do it for. Now, you might be shifting your lane or community, and you could say that. My lane was this, but I'm actually shifting to this. My community was this, but I'm shifting to that. And I will give you a little tip. If you are a career shifter, from an employer's perspective, it's a lot less risky for them if you shift either your lane or your community, not both. Okay. You shift both, they get very nervous because they're like, uh-oh, this person isn't part of our world. If you shift one or the other, they feel a lot safer. Right. So years ago, I tell this story. I helped an attorney. He wanted to become a writer. So I pulled out all of his writing skills on his resume. We created a LinkedIn profile that was all about how much he liked to write. He got a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So the legal trade publication liked the fact that he was from the legal world, but they allowed him to shift his lane. And today he's an English teacher because he finally made the pivot. The point is that one or the other is better than both. So that's just a little tip. But anyway, so while you're networking, lane, community, and then after you say both of those things, if you'd like to share maybe one or two names of specific organizations that you're targeting. Maybe you've recently applied for something, or you really want to work for some organization. Mention that if you feel comfortable. I know this is a public call. Then everyone else around the room can let you know if they have a lead or if they know someone. So that's the other thing is as you're listening to Pete and Mark and Monica, right, talk, everyone else listen in. Make a note and say, oh, wait a second. Mark's in banking. Hey, I've got a connection in the banking world. Monica's an international. I've got a connection there. And maybe you could follow up offline to make an introduction. And so the final thing I would recommend, if you're comfortable, is to put in the chat your contact information, your phone, your email, whatever you're comfortable with, so that other people can connect with you. Okay. So with that, let's go. I'll mention who's in order. So Pete, then Mark, then Monica, and then we'll keep going.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Pete Jones. I have a IT manager, cybersecurity background. And I guess I really don't have a community per se, since pretty much every organization or company needs that type of help. And I guess ideally, I'd like to work in for a Christian nonprofit type organization. Am I missing anything?
I think you're good. And by the way, thanks for mentioning about the community thing. You're right. Not everyone has a community. Some people just have a lane. So that's fine. If you just have a lane, then just mention your lane. Great. Mark, then Monica, then Bridget. Or Brigitte. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. All right. Pete, Mark, and then Monica.
I'm Mark Pretzat. Good morning to you all. I'm an attorney. That's my lane. Sometimes I've also been a regulatory compliance person, which is not technically legal, but in my community, the two are often similar. My community has been financial services, sometimes banks, representing them vis-a-vis their regulators, and sometimes working for the regulators for the government, helping them regulate their banks. In terms of what I'm seeking, something preferably in the private sector. I don't have specific targets. Obviously, the major banks, Citibank, Wells Fargo, et cetera, would be nice. Smaller banks are also uh, something that I would be interested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Monica, then Brigitte.
Okay, well, I'm Monica Jerby. My lane is marketing and communications. My community, as far as a job, has always been largely international development. I've been a U.S. Agency for International Development contractor for more than 30 years. With that imploding, I'm looking to pivot. And so with Shira's coaching, I've looked at the communities that I belong to. I come from a Navy town, but that actually had two communities. There was the very secretive and clean cut nuclear and nuclear and submarine community, and that's where I was more closely aligned. There was also another community downtown that was a bit more rowdy, and so, but I'm more aligned with them. Later I developed connections to uh, special forces. By both a job connection and where I lived, which was very similar to the submarine and nuclear community. You know, high school girls could go hang out at Naval Submarine Base Bangor, go bowling, watch the movies, and you were perfectly safe and no one bothered you. And it's a similar situation with the special forces. In any case, I have also lifelong belonged to groups that were involved with countering extremism. And so that's been a lifelong interest of me and my family. And so right now, what I would be interested in is working for the Jewish Council for the Aging. They have an opening that I think is like a 80% good fit for me. And I attended their career gateway recently, and I felt that it was a good environment for me. Another organization that I'm interested in that I have no context really in is Operation Healing Force, which is down in Florida, and they're involved in mental health support for special forces. So I would love to work with them.
Thank you, Monica. All right, Bridget or Brigitte.
Hi, it's Brigitte. But if you forget, I do answer to Bridget.
I'm sure.
I am from project management. I am looking to shift to IT, and willing to IT help desk, start at the bottom and work my way up. And so the community, both the project management and IT, have across all types of communities, but the community I'm coming from is themed entertainment and the non-governmental organizations like the IMF, UN. But I'm looking to switch to IT.
Well, maybe Pete could be a networking buddy for you because he's
I should talk to Pete.
playing in that world. Yep. So make these connections.
I will make that connection. I'm finding it hard to make my connection in my resume, even as a IT help desk person. So yes, Pete, if you don't mind, I will reach out. Maybe you can help me figure out how to word my resume that I am willing to, go down to move up.
Yep. Glad to talk with you.
Thank you.
Pete and Peter, then Cy, then iPhone to Kellyanne. Again, I'm not sure what your first name is. I'm so sorry. Peter, good to see you, by the way. Peter, you with us? Oh, maybe.
Sorry, nope. Sorry, I thought you were talking to Pete. I'm Peter Hong, and apologies for not. I had some dental work yesterday, so I'm not camera ready today. But I am a writer and in executive communications, and primarily have been in the public affairs, political space. Also done it for associations as well. Just recently lost my job with a philanthropic community where I was writing op-eds. So I haven't really targeted any new potential employers, but just that sort of whole public affairs association world is sort of where I'm looking at.
Thanks, Pete. Sai? Oh, actually, are you able to, are you able to speak, open your mic? If not, I guess you could put it in the chat. And I guess the same thing with our iPhone friend, DeCallian. I guess you had said that you were in the street and couldn't speak. So maybe the two of you want to put your information in the chat. We're happy to help you. So remember your lane and your community. You're not able to unmute. Okay. Yeah. So feel free to put whatever you'd like in the chat. We can grab that. And I also wanted to.
Hi.
There you are. Oh, great. Hi.
So I'm an international student. Like I recently graduated from UNC Greensboro in the field of ITM, Information Technology and Management, and I have 4 years of experience as a Java developer. So I'm looking for a new job in the field of Java development or website development.
Got it. Okay. Well, sounds like we have three people on this call who are in the IT space. So maybe the three of you want to connect. We used to, a long time ago, we had a group of IT people who actually started their own little group for a while, and they would meet to talk about IT things. So anyway, feel free to connect with each other. Okay, great. All right. So before, as we wrap up here, are there any other topics that you all would like us to deep dive into? Anything specific? Networking, resumes, interviewing, salary, LinkedIn, anything we haven't covered today? Pete.
But it's not really a question. I was just going to comment on a recent experience kind of along the lines of networking.
Great.
So back in March, I attended a free community breakfast, and actually ended up meeting Shira's husband there. But I ended up the host of the meeting, invited everybody, all the new people, to grab a cup of coffee or tea with them, afterwards. And I ended up meeting with him last Thursday, I think. I ended up buying him the coffee just to thank him for, the wonderful outreach that he does with that service. And during the conversation, I mentioned I was looking for my next opportunity and whatnot. And he wanted to, he asked me for my resume, that he could share around. And at first I declined. And then he relayed a story to me about a guy. I won't go into the details, but a guy that's in flood waters. He goes up on his roof.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, the moral of the story was, God had tried to send this guy on top of his roof help through a guy on a boat and guy coming on a helicopter. And, the guy on top of the roof declined. Anyways, on my ride home, I reflected on that story, and it just kind of seemed to me as though, somebody was talking through Paul to give me a wake-up call. So on Friday last week, Paul was very generous and wrote a nice letter to a number of people. BCC, I have no idea how many it went to. I know at least 3 people responded to me. And, we're in the middle of various conversations at the moment. So I guess if, in regards to networking, I would highly encourage it and, take full advantage. If somebody is reaching out to give you assistance, take advantage of it and maybe it'll work out for you.
Vern and I are like smiling from ear to ear about that story. Vern, you go for it.
Well, I mean, the tagline for Contacts Count is the power of human connection.
Yeah.
And really, as you get comfortable and confident in networking and meeting people, the type of things that Pete's, example he just gave, those things will happen more and more often. People will help you achieve, whether it's finding a job or it's, if you have a job, it's solving a problem, introducing you to other people that you can learn from. The list of ways we can help each other is almost endless, but you've got to develop that connection first, and you've got to develop a level of trust between you and the other person, and that doesn't come in a single conversation. That comes, over time. So, Shira?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Where do we begin here? Vern and I together have more stories than we can shake a stick at of how the power of networking. And look, it's true. The one connection, can help a little bit. Building a relationship, offering yourself to that person, helping solve their problems, making connections for them, really being in relationship is really the way that it goes, right? It's not just one-sided. I know a lot of people come into a job search and think, oh, but I don't want to impose on my network and I don't want to just come with my hand out. It's actually an opportunity for you to help somebody else. You might think that you're the one who needs the help. They need help too. Everybody needs help. We all need each other. So that could be an opportunity for you to say, look, fine, I'm starting with my own need, but you know what? This is my good excuse to go meet somebody, meet a neighbor, meet a friend, whoever, and say, how can I help you? What's going on in your life, personally, professionally? Could be anything. You never know the kind of resource that you could be for someone. Okay. So whether it's somebody on this call, your next door neighbor, someone you meet at church, wherever it is, right? Take the time to reach out. You could be the blessing that they needed, and then they could be a blessing for you, right? So look, I'll give you, gosh, I don't even know where to start. Like we have between Vern and I, we got right stories upon stories. I'll give you just a couple of quick examples. So I mentioned earlier today the interview the candidate that I sent on the interview and the employer didn't kind of know how to answer the questions. Well, the way that the candidate's name was Kristen. The way that Kristen even got to me is through networking. Here's what happened. I, as the recruiter, went on LinkedIn. I reached out and did a search for this particular job. It was a certain manager of exam development. Okay, a very niche search. So I went in to LinkedIn and I looked for all the people who were managers of exam development. Like 42 people came up. I reached out a note to everybody. One woman named Lee said to me in LinkedIn, she goes, well, I'm really happy in my job. I'm not looking for a job. You should talk to my friend, Kristen. The only way that happened is because Kristen was networking with Lee. And that's how I connected with Kristen. Okay. So that's one thing. You've got to let your network know what's going on. I'll give you another example. So years ago, again, there's lots and lots of these. These are the ones that just come into mind. So years ago, I had actually it was a guy named Barry, and he was not in this group because I hadn't had this group yet, but in my job search networking group, he sort of knew about me. And he reached out to me because he had just applied for a job, actually already had an interview with a nonprofit, and he noticed on LinkedIn that I was connected to the employer, a guy named Mike. So Barry reaches out to me on LinkedIn and says, hey, I noticed you're connected to this guy, Mike. Shira, would you put in a good word for me, right, around my candidacy? Well, I knew Barry. And I'm like, hey, sure. What Barry didn't know, Mike was my client. Mike wasn't just an acquaintance. He had no idea. Mike was a real legit client. I knew him. I placed people there. I reached out to Mike. I'm like, hey, I noticed you met with Barry. Just want to put in a good word, blah, blah, blah. Mike writes back, he's like, oh, Shira, I trust your opinion. Thank you so much for writing. Happens to be that 1 week later, I ran into Mike at a networking event, and Mike puts his arm around me. He's like, tell me more about Barry. Well, anyway, Barry got the job. Okay. Barry had no idea my relationship to Mike, but he reached out anyway. Vern and I have story upon story upon story, but you've got to reach out. And again, you could be the blessing for somebody else too.
And the ultimate prize in networking, if you're, managing your career, is the jobs come to you.
That's right. You get tapped.
That's the ultimate,
Mhm.
people know you so well, they
Right.
recommend you for
That's
jobs.
right.
Even when you're not looking for a job,
That's
you
right.
could be, you could
That's
be
right.
completely employed.
Hmm.
They say, I've had that happen to me twice in my career. You know, well, and again, one of the foundational principles of Contact Scout is to think about networking as teaching and giving.
Hmm.
So the more that I teach Pete about who I am and what I'm all about, the greater likelihood he might help me. The more I learn about Pete, greater likelihood I could help him.
Yeah.
So when I expressed my desire to get into career management with a recruiter, and I developed a relationship over a couple of years, and I told her about my experiences, and she reached out to me and she said, Verna, you're still interested in career management? I said, yes, I am. And she said, Lee Heck Harrison is hiring for a VP of professional services. Are you interested? I said, yes, I am. She recommended me for the job and I got the job. And the only reason that happened was because that relationship developed over time. And she was as a recruiter, I was referring people to her because I knew what she was doing. So I just, as Shira says, we could talk for
All
hours
day long.
all day long about networking.
Yeah, really, really important. Again, for both sides. We are
Yeah.
here to help each other. In fact, I'll just make a note for anybody who's a Netflix watcher. There's a show my husband and I are watching now, a documentary. It's called Join or Die. And it's basically about the decline of social and civic engagement and how over the last number of decades, it was based on a book called Bowling Alone, which was popular in the 90s. And it was a researcher, a sociologist kind of guy, Robert Putnam, I think. And he was tracking how over time our society, US society, has been joining groups less and less and less and less and less, all kinds of groups, civic groups, churches, associations in general. We just tend to join less, and there's all kinds of supposed reasons for that with technology and TVs and whatever. The point, though, is that when people come to even look at this group, our group right here, we are a community group. Okay, we're helping each other, really. And you never know, like, what could happen here. Join groups, start groups, reach out to people, right? Let people know what you're doing, what you need. You help them. What do they need? We are here to help each other, right? And especially in a day and an age when everything's virtual and we're less in person, the more you can reach out for their sake, not just for your sake, the more we're all going to, right, rising tides and help each other. Speaking of which, good segue. So I've let folks know, and we have a couple volunteers on this call. I'm starting a new community service called Higher Vision, which is specifically to help the federally disrupted workforce. So federal employees, nonprofits, government contractors. Lord willing, we're going to kick this off in May. And Mark and Monica, just as an update, I'm working on the website now. So I've had all my little team, right? I'll thank you all for helping. It's taken a village. I've had over 20 volunteers like Monica and Mark to help with this. So anyway, we're getting it going. Hopefully in May we'll launch, and we're going to have different community groups. We'll have one main group that'll be cross-sectoral, and then hopefully other groups that'll be like more specific, like higher vision healthcare, higher vision education, things like that. So anyway, stay tuned for that. I will be sharing more. Monica?
I just want to commend you on this group and the group that you're starting, the Higher Vision. I've attended other career networking groups, you know, and it's almost feels like an infomercial, you know, for paid services, which I can't afford right now. But you know, nothing that you do feels like an infomercial for paid services, and it's just very supportive. And I feel like I'm brown nosing, and maybe I am, but I commend you on that because it's frustrating to waste your time on something that just turns out to be an infomercial.
Yeah, well, we're, you know, we in the coaching community and Vern is amongst us. We love you guys and want to help and obviously if we can be more support, I mean, you know where to find us and we're happy to do that, but really we all want to be a support to the community. So thanks for all that, Monica. All righty. So I'm going to go ahead and formally close the call here. And for those of you who would like to stay on for a short prayer call, I'll be leading you all in that as well. Okay. So look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. Have a blessed day, everybody.